Hey guys, welcome back once again. I'm working on a new project where I build a multi-tenant authentication system for a SaaS-based application. The app is designed for a property management agency that manages multiple properties. Each property is a tenant, and under each tenant, you have a landlord and the tenants that occupy the property. And as well, in the agency, you've got maintenance staff that can do work orders across all properties, which is across all tenants. In this series, I'll be guiding you guys through building this system from scratch, from setting up Azure Active Directory to utilizing Microsoft authentication libraries in the .NET Backend API and the React.js frontend. The major features are user management, tenant isolation, and role management. The challenge here is to just ensure that landlords and tenants can access only what they need, and onboarding of new tenants is as seamless as possible. Alright guys, before I walk you guys through setting up Azure Active Directory B2C, I'll be showing you guys the basic architecture of the authentication system, or rather the project I'm trying to build, or I'm working on. So I'll go ahead and share my screen now. So I've got Azure Active Directory at the forefront, which manages the user authentication and issues tokens with claims. So claims basically are user properties like tenant ID, role, the username, email address, and all you decide to, get from the user. So the React.js frontend, which you have to first register as an app in Azure Active Directory so you can communicate with it, retrieves a token, or rather authenticates the user using Microsoft Authentication Library, and then gets a token from the directory, which it then uses to make an API request to the .NET API. This .NET API as well is also registered in Azure Active Directory. And when you register this application, you set up necessary permissions, which you want a web app to have, or rather the tokens to have when making requests. So now, when the React.js frontend or the whichever framework you're making use of makes a request to the API, it validates the token and ensures it has the necessary permissions needed to make requests to the API. So now the whole database part is third party. Like you can then decide to fetch properties from a database, which I'm doing, which I'll then return back to the front end. So yeah, that just sums it all up about the architecture. It's just a basic one. So I'll just go ahead and set up the new Azure Active Directory B2C tenant. So over here, you have to make sure you have an active Azure account. I've gone already, and also you need to have an Azure subscription active as well. So what you just have to do is first you have to go to your default, you have to switch over to your default directory. So you click on switch directory. I've got three directories here. I've got the Freeman Code one, which is the current one, then Cosmos DB trial, and another one which I created a few hours ago. Then when you're in active directory or your default directory, you can then proceed. But before you create a resource in your subscription, ensure that you have the. So I'll just go over here, go to tutorials, because I'm in this of creating the stuff here. So go to tutorials, then go to your resource providers and ensure you have Microsoft.Azure Active Directory registered. If not, it won't. When you try creating a new tenant or a new Active Directory B2C, it won't work. Just go ahead and register this. So this is going to take a few seconds. I'll pause the video. So your Active Directory has been registered. To ensure this has been registered, you can refresh to make sure it has been registered. Then navigate back to your home page, then create a resource. Then in here, you search for Azure AD B2C. Then click on create a new Azure AD B2C tenant. Then here, I'll just call this Freeman, rather, real property. Then the domain name, you can name this whatever you want. Real property, then set the location to United Kingdom. And then the subscription, I'll use tutorials, and I'll create a new resource group as well. I'll call this real property as well. Okay. I'll set the region to, or the location to UK West. So I'll proceed to create. There's something on those. All right, this has to be unique, I guess. So I'll call this Freeman codes property. I'll proceed to creating a new tenant. So yeah, this is gonna take a few seconds as well. So I'll pause the video. So yeah, the tenant has been created. So next up is just going to the tenant. So just click on this. So yeah, I'm directory right now, and I'll proceed to creating app registrations for, or rather registering the web app and the web API. So I'll first start with the web API. So under here, you have this B2C which just handles authentication. So you shouldn't remove it like they say there. Do not modify. So I'll proceed to creating a new registration. I'll call this API because I'm in the Freeman codes property. So I can call this API without having to prefix Freeman codes property. So yeah, I'll leave the default selections. Then web, making use of jwt.ms. Then this basically just enables you to see the tokens and the claims when you make them. It just basically redirects you back to this URL so you can easily see the information that the token contains when it's yeah that the information the token contains basically when is I think when it's decrypted, something like that. So I'll register. See, I've got the API. I can go ahead to create a new certificate or secret. So I'll just add a new certificate or a new secret, sorry. So I'll call this client secrets. So one thing about the secret is once you create them, the values are shown only once. So you have to copy and paste. I'm not going to copy and paste. I'm just showing you guys so you just know. So I'll create this. So because this is what you're going to be used to authenticate with Azure Active Directory. So next step is creating, but before I get to the API permissions, or rather exposing the API permissions, I'll first create the web app. I'll proceed to creating the web app. Web, then here web as well. Then I can decide to navigate to redirect back. So after authentication, I can decide to redirect back to a URL path in my front end. So because I don't really have anything set up now, I'll just call this localhost 3000. Then I will leave this as it is, then register. So that's been set up. You can also set up a secret here as well, because you'll be needing secret when authenticating. So I'll call this client secret. So next step now is setting up permissions that the API will be expecting from the web request to authenticate requests from the front end to make sure that our requests are not anonymous and they are through the Azure Active Directory. So I'll proceed to API, exposing an API under the API registration. This is for the API, not the web app. So under here, I'll add a new URI, sorry. So I'll just call this, so it's Freeman codes property.on Microsoft.com. Then I'll call this properties API and I'll save it. Yeah, that's application ID URL, and I'll define two scopes, one for reading and one for writing. So when you're then setting up the controller, or rather when you're building the API, we should get into later on, you can then use these scopes to like protect the routes to ensure that requests are always authorized. So I'll call this property dot dot read. Or just reads properties, or rather retrieves properties. Add the scope here. And I'll also add one for right? So maybe like when you're trying to create a new property, right? Properties, right? Properties as well. Then navigating back to my app registrations under web, I'll go ahead and give it permissions to access using those scope to access the API. So over here, I'll just add a new permission, navigate to my APIs that my organization uses, then select API, then select the kind of permissions I want. Delegated permissions means your application needs to access the API as the signed user, which is what we want, not it running as a background service. So I'll select the two scopes or the two properties the two scopes I created back in the API, and I'll add those permissions.
Here's your evening unwind routine.
Alexa, pause. Sorry about that, guys. Then I will grant. I think I forgot to grant access for the. No, just grant it over here. So you can see now that it's showing not granted access for Freeman codes. I don't know why this is not full. For Freeman codes property dot the Freeman codes property dot on Microsoft.com. So you just go ahead and click this button over here to grant admin consent. Click on yes and refresh. Everything's alright. So yeah, I mean this sums it all up about setting up Azure Active Directory B2C and configuring your web and API, or rather registering your web and API app, which you can then use to authenticate with Azure Active Directory. I'll just be creating a user flow as well to just show you guys how a simple sign in or sign up flow could work using Azure Active Directory for managing authentication. So I head over to my user flows and create a new user flow. I'll create a new sign up and sign in user flow, because this is what you're using when you're trying to sign up or sign in your web app. That's your front end app. So you're going to use this user flow. You're going to use the policy ID to then authenticate, because you specify the policy ID, which as your Microsoft authentication library will now use to take care of the whole sign up or sign in process. So I just create one here and I'll test in the browser. I'll call this sign up, sign in, email sign up. I'll leave this as it is. So yeah, these are the claims. So basically the user attributes. So I will just specify that I need to collect the user email address, their surname, or they're giving name alone. That's fine. That just it. You can select as much as you want, and also you can also create custom ones, but I'm creating custom properties here. Just keep it simple as it is. So yeah, that's been done. I'll click on this and click on run user flow. That's API. Yeah, click on run. So this is a simple, straightforward sign in, sign up process using Azure Active Directory. So I can go ahead and sign up. I mean, it's gonna expect me to. So I'll use this .tm to enter my verification code. Refresh. Verify code. Set password and all. And create user. Yeah, that's all about it. So the token is meant to be here unless it didn't provide it. But if we go back to Azure Active Directory under the users, you can see the new user which I just created down. That is the 46 area down the all stuff as specified over there. So yeah, that's just all about it. This sums it all up about setting up Azure Active Directory and registering your app in Azure Active Directory, so you can use the IDs and secrets to authenticate using the directory. So yeah,